After 25 years of running that department like a war zone triage, I was called into conference room C for what HR called a strategic realignment update. They always pick room C. No windows. Fluorescents that hum like an interrogation lamp. A table just wide enough to feel like a barrier, not wide enough to stop anything meaningful. I knew something was off the second I saw Sasha Griggs already sitting there, sipping from a company-branded thermos like she was about to deliver a TED Talk. My name is Mark Reynolds. I'm 52 years old, or at least I was that morning. By the time I left that building, I felt like I'd aged a decade. I was the senior operations lead at Halcyon Freight Solutions, a logistics firm built during the Y2K panic and somehow still upright. I'd been with them since dial-up internet was considered cutting edge, built the routing systems, negotiated the warehouse leases, trained 3 generations of inventory techs. When the company moved to cloud-based everything, I was the one who made sure the lights stayed on while the consultants optimized. Halcyon ran lean because I made it that way. Sasha Griggs was a different breed. She came in 2 years ago from a brand strategy firm, all slides and buzzwords, 0 field time. I heard she got the VP title because her uncle played golf with our CEO. I never confirmed that. Didn't need to. "Mark," she said as I sat down. "Thank you for coming in early." She didn't wait for a response. That's how I knew. Behind her sat Danielle from HR. Clipboard, legal pad, eyes that wouldn't quite meet mine. I'd seen that look before, during layoffs, during closures, but never with my name on the paperwork. Sasha launched into the speech like she'd been rehearsing in front of a mirror all morning. "As you know, we're in a period of rapid evolution. The landscape's changing. Clients want more speed, more flexibility. We need to be nimble." Danielle nodded like it was a sermon, and she was the choir. I didn't say a word. I watched Sasha's face. No hesitation, no flicker of regret. Just polished confidence, like this was a PowerPoint deck and I was slide 8. She kept going. "We've been assessing internal alignment with strategic objectives, and we've concluded that certain legacy roles no longer support forward momentum, including yours." I sat back. The only sound was the buzz of the overhead light. "I see," I said. That seemed to catch her off guard. She blinked once, maybe expecting an outburst, but I'd learned long ago that loud men get escorted out by security. Quiet men walk out with answers. "We're eliminating your position effective immediately," she continued. "You'll be transitioned out today." Transitioned out? Like I was software being uninstalled. I looked at Danielle. She shifted in her seat. Didn't offer anything. No severance, no thank you for your service plaque, no handshake. Just 2 eyes that didn't want to be the ones in the room. Then Sasha smiled, almost relieved to be done with it. "But we're excited to bring in new energy. Carter Jameson will be stepping into a restructured role combining elements of operations and analytics. He'll be sitting at your desk starting this afternoon." Carter. I'd seen the name once on an onboarding form. 23, recent grad, 0 logistics experience. Someone said he was Sasha's old college roommate's kid, the kind of guy who called into meetings 5 minutes late and said, "My bad," like that was a full sentence. "That desk has 2 decades of work in it," I said. "Backups, vendor logs, archived routing maps." Sasha nodded. "IT will handle the data migration." I almost laughed. Danielle handed me a beige envelope. Inside was a release form, predated. I didn't touch it. "Someone will escort you to your office so you can collect your things," she said. I stood up slowly, smoothed the front of my shirt. My father always told me, when they try to shrink you, stand taller. Neither of them moved. Walking out, the halls felt smaller than they ever had. Too clean, too quiet. Like the company was already deleting the last 25 years 1 hallway at a time. When I rounded the corner to my old area, I saw Carter already in my chair, feet up on the desk, grinning. He looked like a man who just inherited a kingdom he didn't build and didn't understand. He gave me a thumbs up. I didn't return it. I walked past without breaking stride. Carter sent the Asia-Pacific logistics folder to the recycle bin. Not the documents, the folder. 18 years of client data gone in 12 seconds. I watched it happen from my kitchen counter, coffee in one hand, the company dashboard still logged in on my tablet. Nobody revoked my credentials. Nobody remembered to. Maybe they figured I'd slink off into retirement and spend my days yelling at the news. They underestimated what 25 years in logistics teaches you. You don't just walk away from systems you built by hand. You watch what happens when they're handed to a boy who thinks a supply chain is a metaphor. Since the day they shoved me out of conference room C, I'd fallen into a rhythm of motion without purpose. Mornings started early. I'd pace the tile floor, open and close drawers, polish tools I hadn't used in years. The silence in the house pressed down like a weighted blanket. My wife left 3 years ago. Different story, different scar, and the walls never stopped echoing after that. But I had my screen and my logins, and I had front row seats to a disaster in slow motion. The deletion came during Carter's first week unsupervised. I saw the notification in real time. He'd renamed a file folder Asia Final New, and then somehow managed to drag the original directory into the void. Gone were customs forms, tax filings, routing maps, partner contracts with ports in Singapore and Osaka. Gone were 18 years of institutional memory, all reduced to a blinking warning banner. Missing directory path. I didn't call anyone. Didn't message IT. I just sat there and watched. 2 days later, I got an email from Shintaro Ogawa, VP of Koyo International. We'd worked with them since 2007. He asked why Carter hadn't responded to their last shipment audit and if Halcyon had reassigned their point of contact. I stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard, and then typed one line. Apologies, Mr. Ogawa. I no longer represent Halcyon Freight. I recommend resending your inquiry to operationshalcyonfs.com. He replied with a single sentence. Something seems broken. He wasn't wrong. That week, Sasha released a memo to the whole company titled, Navigating Transition Turbulence. It read like a TEDx summary. Change invites friction. Friction sparks innovation. Innovation demands courage. No mention of missing folders, no acknowledgement of disrupted clients, just a vague nod toward technical irregularities and alignment opportunities. She blamed IT for migration errors. Said Carter was helping them troubleshoot. Helping. That word sat wrong with me. I pulled up my old email account and drafted a message to myself. Not because I had anything to prove, but because history matters when the walls start collapsing. The subject line was blank. The body just read, I told you this would happen. MR. I archived it into a folder labeled Contingency. After that, I started documenting everything I saw. Logged timestamps, Slack messages Carter forgot were public, screenshots of invoice discrepancies. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but I knew enough to treat it like intelligence from the field. You don't launch a mission without recon. One night I watched a Zoom call they forgot to close access to. Carter was presenting updates to the exec team, fumbling through KPIs he clearly didn't understand. At one point he called a shipping port a dock zone thingy. Sasha laughed like it was charming. The CFO did not. That same week, 4 longtime clients went silent. No more login pings, no more activity. Ghosts. Still, no one called me, no apology, no request for guidance, just silence. But silence doesn't mean peace. Sometimes it's just the air holding its breath before the explosion. I printed out the deletion log, the client complaint, the internal memo, and clipped them together in a manila folder I labeled Phase 1. Then I poured myself a whiskey, neat, and sat at the kitchen table. I wasn't done. Not even close. Corporate wanted my silence. They forgot I still had keys to the fire. It started with a lunch invite from Lisa Kwan, halibut at Holloway's Bistro, 2 blocks off the old corporate loop. She picked the place. Said she wanted something quiet, not conference room quiet. but real quiet. Lisa wasn't the type to waste time on pleasantries. Former in-house counsel, now private practice, sharp as a bone saw, and just as clean. We hadn't seen each other since the summer of 2013, back when a mislabeled shipment nearly triggered a federal recall. I'd pulled tracking logs that saved the company 8 figures and a CEO's job. She hadn't forgotten. "You look leaner," she said as we sat down. "Stress diet or revenge fasting?" I smiled. Routine collapse of professional dignity. She grinned and sipped her water. "You brought something." I slid the flash drive across the table. Black casing, no label. It looked innocent enough, like a keychain trinket. But the data on it could take down 5 careers and a regional office before dessert. "Encrypted," I said. "Triple layer. Air-gapped backup stored off network. If anyone asks, I'm just a very sentimental hoarder." She plugged it into her tablet, entered a password I'd sent an hour earlier. The screen glowed. Her eyebrows lifted just a fraction. "You've been busy." I never stopped watching. There were PDFs of Carter's expense reports, meals for 2 billed during solo site visits, Uber rides across town at the exact same hour he'd claimed to be in client meetings, a hotel charge from a property that happened to sit 5 blocks from Sasha's condo. There were emails. Sasha overriding HR's hiring freeze to onboard Carter under a contractor loophole, complete with time-stamped Slack messages where she called him basically family. And there were reports from clients, 3 who had terminated accounts within weeks of Carter taking over. One noted unprofessional conduct and missed deadlines as the reason. Another simply wrote, "Your replacement does not understand basic international compliance." Lisa tapped the screen. "And this is your own record?" Every deleted folder, every time-stamped edit, every misrouted manifest. She sat back in her chair, tapping a finger on her lip. "This isn't a lawsuit," she said quietly. "It's a takedown." I looked out the window at the street traffic. People walking to late lunches, checking phones, making plans. The world hadn't changed. Just my place in it. "You sure you want to do this?" she asked. "This ends careers." "I didn't start this, I just didn't throw away the evidence." She nodded slowly, eyes still on the screen. I didn't say anything else. We finished our food in silence. I paid. That night I poured a drink and queued up Halcyon's Q4 live stream on the company website. It was a glossy, overproduced affair. Clean camera sweeps, synth music, big font keywords blinking across the screen. Transformation, vision, velocity. Then Sasha appeared, all teeth and tone, standing in front of a projected slide that read, "The New Halcyon." She talked about cultural evolution, dynamic infrastructure, aligning legacy systems with future-forward energy. Her voice never cracked. She was a professional liar now, maybe always had been. And then the camera cut to the audience. Front row, my old seat. Carter sat there wearing my desk badge, still clipped to the same retractable cord I'd used for 10 years. He sipped a company latte like he'd built the damn place himself. That was the moment. Not the deletion, not the severance dodge, not even the hotel receipts. It was that chair. I muted the stream, sat there in the dark, the glow of the screen flickering across my living room like a bonfire just waiting for a match. I still hadn't made my move, but I'd just picked my target. Someone sent the board 67 pages of screenshots, receipts, and client testimonials. It wasn't me, not officially. The packet arrived in a sealed envelope. No return address, no cover letter, just a black binder clipped at the top, tabs color-coded and time-stamped like it had been prepped for a federal hearing. From what I heard, the courier dropped it off with security and walked out without giving a name. 4 hours later, Halcyon's boardroom blinds were drawn and Sasha Griggs was pulled from a scheduled strategy session and led upstairs by 2 directors with expressions like weathered stone. Carter never made it to the meeting. He was seen leaving the building around 2:30 p.m., laptop bag slung over one shoulder, earbuds in, looking like someone who just realized the music had stopped, but the dancing hadn't. He never came back. I was sitting across the street on a bench, coffee in hand, cap pulled low, just watching. Old habits die hard. You don't do 25 years in logistics without learning how to sit still and observe while everyone else scrambles. It's in the stillness that the truth shows its face. The next morning, clients started pulling out. Quiet at first. A couple legacy accounts that had gone radio silent weeks ago sent official termination letters, citing operational instability and loss of confidence in personnel. Then it picked up speed. 3 pulled Q1 shipments, 2 canceled site visits. 1, a European distributor we'd worked with since '09, demanded all proprietary data be returned and access credentials revoked within 24 hours. I didn't smile, but I felt something stir, like a locked door inside my chest creaking open. I didn't need to leak the files. I'd already built the storm. All someone had to do was open the window and let it in. At 2:03 a.m., Sasha sent an all-hands email titled, "Maintaining Integrity During Change." I still had access to internal announcements, another thing they forgot to revoke. Her tone was polished desperation. She cited unsubstantiated allegations, hinted at internal sabotage, and even floated the phrase, "coordinated attack by disgruntled former employees." No names, no admission, just panic dressed in corporate language. I read it 3 times. She was unraveling. By noon, a formal inquiry had begun. Legal launched an internal audit. The systems team was instructed to pull server logs going back 6 months. HR issued a new digital security policy. Every single employee was required to re-authenticate their credentials and submit to a compliance review. They were bleeding in the water, and no one could tell where the first cut had come from. Around 4 p.m., my phone buzzed. A number I recognized from the finance team. Maya Hassan, mid-30s, sharp, quiet, used to run payroll with terrifying precision. I hadn't heard from her since the day I left. The message was short. They found Carter's creative reimbursements. Also, Sasha's been approving them. I stared at the screen for a long minute. Then I powered the phone off. There was nothing else to say, nothing to add. I hadn't forged anything. I hadn't lied. I hadn't hacked or twisted or leaked. All I'd done was pay attention. All I'd done was keep the receipts. It turns out when you shine light in the right places, rot starts to crawl on its own. That night I opened the folder labeled Phase 2. Inside were 3 documents, a contact list, a timeline chart, and a drafted statement. I read through it once, then closed it again. Not yet. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about making sure every piece fell exactly where it needed to. Carter was gone. Sasha was spinning. But the board? They hadn't moved. Yet. They called it voluntary resignation. HR removed her badge while she cried into a company mug. I wasn't there when it happened, at least not in the building. But people talk, even when they think they shouldn't. A buddy in facilities said Sasha Griggs showed up like it was any other Monday. Heels sharp, hair pinned, voice firm. She even brought one of those motivational coffee cups. "Be the storm," it said. By 10:45 a.m., she was in conference room E with 2 members of the board and a third party from legal. By 11:12, she was out. Eyes red, blouse wrinkled at the collar, the same mug clutched between both hands like a lifeline. She didn't even fight. Not after they showed her the shareholder suit. Her emails had been printed out and marked with annotations. Not just the ones approving Carter's bloated expenses or fast-tracking his hiring through a nepotism workaround, but emails where she openly mocked senior staff, blamed imaginary subordinates for her own oversights, and discussed reputation control strategies if I ever spoke up. The board didn't need a trial. They needed a signature. And Carter? He vanished. Last anyone saw, he'd scrubbed his social media, deleted his LinkedIn, and ghosted the Gmail account he'd been using for freelance consulting. But damage has a way of echoing louder than the people who cause it. A logistics blog, small, independent, the kind no one used to care about, ran a story. Client betrayed by exec's nephew, the Carter Files. They published the receipts, the botched contracts, the falsified expense reports, and worst of all, the companies he cost tens of thousands. 3 industry bodies blacklisted him. 1 revoked a pending certification. That kid will never hold a clearance again. Last Thursday, I got a call. Halcyon's new interim COO, a guy named Barker I used to train during his intern days, reached out through a private line. "We'd like to bring you in as a consultant," he said. "Short term, to help stabilize accounts, rebuild trust. You know this place better than anyone." I didn't answer right away. He waited. "Appreciate the offer," I finally said. "But I don't patch holes I didn't punch." He sighed. "Understood." The next morning I woke up early. Shaved, pressed a clean shirt, khakis, brown belt, nothing flashy. I parked 1 block over from Halcyon's west entrance and walked with purpose, nodding at the guards I used to joke with every Friday morning. They didn't ask questions. They just opened the door. The office was quieter than I remembered. Phones ringing at half the usual pace. Voices low, uncertain. I headed straight for the 3rd floor, operations, my floor. Or it used to be. The walls were still lined with the old dry erase boards, the same faded printouts of outdated shipping codes taped up like relics. It smelled like lemon cleaner and anxiety. I walked past my old office. The nameplate was gone. The inside looked stripped, bare desk, cleared shelves, no sign of Carter or his mess. I kept walking until I reached the central drawer unit behind the file server rack. I opened the 3rd drawer, back left corner. Still there. A brass paperweight I'd gotten in 1999 during our first nationwide expansion, a tiny engraved compass and a quote etched underneath. "Hold steady. Ships need anchors too." I pocketed it. On the way out, I heard heels clacking behind me, slow and uneven. I turned slightly. Sasha. Security flanked her, 1 on each side, but she wasn't resisting. Her expression was vacant. No fire, no steel, just the dull realization of finality. She glanced up as we passed. For half a second, her eyes caught mine. There was no recognition in them. I nodded once. She said nothing. Outside, the sun hit harder than I expected. I didn't put on sunglasses. I let the light sting. 2 hours later, I sat in a diner off Route 8, corner booth, same one I'd used during audits in 2015. The waitress brought black coffee and a laminated menu she knew I wouldn't open. I unfolded the local business paper instead. The headline stretched across the top fold in bold type. "VP resigns amidst scandal. Whistleblower remains unknown." I took a sip of coffee. No sugar, no cream. The only thing slower than dial-up is karma loading at 1% until it hits you all at once.